10 via the barbecue landing north 3041, FedEx 1230. Thank you.
I've been driving a long haul out of Asheville. Lumber pallets to Cincinnati, then deadheading back. My cash was low, my fridge was empty, and my company's pay schedule had been slipping by a few days more every damn week. You know how it goes. I'd been running since I was 22, but lately, it didn't feel like a life. Just a long stretch of road that didn't lead anywhere but exhaustion. I stopped at a gas station off Route 52 near Gilbert, West Virginia. Middle of nowhere, barely a working restroom and one flickering pump. I was about to catch a few hours of sleep when this guy approached me out of the dark. Early 40s maybe, clean cut, not quite dressed like a trucker. Black Columbia jacket, scuff boots, baseball cap. He asked if I was heading south. I said I wasn't, not unless it paid. That's when he made his pitch. He had a Peterbilt sleeper parked a few hundred yards down a gravel turnoff. Said he needed someone to move it about 90 miles down the line to a yard outside Williamson. His license was suspended, apparently, and he was desperate. But here's the hook. He said I didn't need to touch the load, didn't need to mess with the route, just drive it and park it where he told me. He'd ride in the sleeper cab the whole way, sleeping. No questions, no paperwork. Just $600 in cash right now. I hesitated. Everything about it felt off. But I was low on fuel and options. The guy wasn't twitchy, wasn't rude. Just tired-looking and serious. He handed me the key fob and gestured toward a long shadowed rig in the tree line. Red cab, chrome tanks, no markings. No company name. Didn't even have DOT numbers on the side. I should have walked, but I didn't. We climbed in. I fired it up, engine purred. He slipped behind the curtain into the sleeper without a word. No duffel bag, no coat, no water bottle. Just disappeared behind the vinyl flap. For the first hour, everything was quiet. Just the road, fog in the trees, hum of the wheels. Then I noticed the mirrors. Every 20 minutes or so, a dark SUV would appear behind us, far back, sometimes just at the edge of the beam. No headlights, just shadows. Then it would vanish again. I figured maybe I was tired. But every time I glanced back, there was this flicker like someone watching. When we hit the outskirts of Williamson, I followed the guy's drop instructions exactly. Old gravel lot near a junkyard. Wide open, no cameras, no lights. I parked it where he said, shut it down, left the key in the cup holder like he told me. But when I got out, he wasn't there. The curtain to the sleeper cab was open. Empty. No sleeping bag. No boots. Nothing. I checked around the lot, called out. No answer. Just a busted street light buzzing over rusted axles. I walked away fast. Next morning, I'm back in my own rig at a truck stop with actual food and signal. I get a notification on my phone, Amber Alert. Then a second one. Then I saw my face. Blurry still from a gas station camera. Me, stepping out of that red Peterbilt the night before. Right underneath the headline. Wanted for questioning, child abduction, interstate transport. My blood ran cold. I clicked through the story. A 12-year-old girl had been reported missing from a town near Beckley. Witnesses claimed she'd been forced into a sleeper cab by a man in a baseball cap. The truck, red Peterbilt, no numbers, no company decal. Police believed she was transported across county lines overnight. The vehicle had been found. Abandoned. Same lot I dropped it at. Empty. I threw up right there in the parking lot. The worst part? They didn't have his photo. Only mine. I tried calling the local sheriff's department anonymously. Didn't even finish my sentence before they traced the call and disconnected. My name was already in the system. Then it clicked. The ID I'd shown at the fuel station the day before? The guy had seen it. I had it laid out on the dash when he approached. That rig? It wasn't just about transporting a missing kid. It was bait, and I just put my fingerprints all over it. I drove out of state that afternoon. Changed plates on the rig using an old trick I learned back when I was running produce with no reefer license. Parked in a lot under a bridge for 2 days while I figured out if I was going to turn myself in or try to run harder. Then I saw it, a post on a dark little forum for drivers. Title: Any of y'all seen the guy in the red Pete? A photo attached. Zoomed from a side mirror. The man. The same baseball cap. Different truck. Same playbook. Turns out I wasn't the first. He'd done this before. Over and over. Changed rigs, changed states, always left behind some sucker like me to take the fall. One guy in the comments claimed he saw the red Pete again in Kentucky. Another swore he helped tow it once in North Carolina. Same setup, no plates, no DOT number, brand new VIN sticker that didn't match anything on file. It wasn't just about abduction. It was about erasure. Use strangers. Burn the truck. Dump the kid. Walk clean. And you know what haunts me most? I still don't know if the girl made it out alive. I hired a lawyer, gave my statement, cooperated, turned in my logs, my dash cam, which had conveniently blacked out from 2 a.m. to 4:15 a.m., almost like it was tampered with. They said I might be cleared. Someday. But every time a kid goes missing in the region, guess who the feds come knocking on again? Every time I roll through southern Appalachia, I wonder if he's still out there. Flagging down another tire driver. Different hat. Same story. And every time I see a red Peterbilt in my mirror, I grip the wheel a little tighter. Because I know what it feels like to wake up wanted. To be someone's alibi. To be the fall guy for a ghost. I bought the trailer cheap off a guy named Lance in a trucker Facebook group. Cash deal, no questions. It was an old Thermo King reefer unit with peeling white paint and a dented rear door, sitting behind a shut-down pork processing plant off Route 119 near Logan, West Virginia. The ad said it ran cold and was in decent shape for its age. I just needed something to get me through the fall produce season, didn't have the cash for new. When I showed up to inspect it, Lance wasn't there. Just a handwritten note taped to the reefer's battery box. She's unlocked. If you want it, text me. Title's in the fridge. I'll admit, that was weird. But the man had a public profile, a CDL, and pictures of the same trailer on his timeline dating back 2 years. I figured maybe he was just busy or didn't want to deal with hagglers. I opened the trailer doors. First thing that hit me was the smell, faint, but sharp, like bleach over something older. Chemical, cold, and sour underneath. Not awful, but noticeable. The floor was steel, ribbed, and frosted over. Not just cold, actually frozen. Thin sheets of ice along the edges, little puddles that had refrozen around the scuppers. The walls dripped with condensation like it had just been running. But here's the thing, the reefer unit was off. No hump, no exhaust, no lights on the panel. Batteries were dead. I stepped inside, boots crunching on the ice, and reached the front compartment. Sure enough, there was a plastic grocery bag duct taped to the inside wall. Inside that, a Ziploc with the title and a note. Don't run it below 10 degrees. Trust me. I stared at it for a long time. Trust me isn't the kind of phrase you want taped inside a refrigerated death box. But everything checked out. Been matched. Trailer wasn't stolen. I hooked it up, towed it home, and that should have been the end of it. But the next morning, I found something odd. My dog wouldn't go near it. Duke's a mutt. Sweet, dumb, never had a problem with rigs. But when I backed the trailer into my gravel lot, he sat under the porch, hackles up, low growl in his throat. Ears pinned, eyes locked on the doors. I walked around back, slapped the metal twice. Empty, buddy. He just whined. That night, I dreamed about pigs squealing. Not screaming, squealing. High-pitched, panicked, full of blood and wire and wet floors. I hadn't heard that sound in over a decade, not since I did a load out of a slaughterhouse in Missouri. Next day, I decided to clean it out. Fired up the reefer unit using my tractor's auxiliary power and let it hum. She cooled fast, maybe too fast. Internal thermometer dropped to 18 in under 15 minutes. Still, everything looked clean. I figured the smell was from old meat runs, maybe some bad coolant left behind. I pulled out the deck plates and found what I expected. A few shreds of plastic wrap, some rust spots, a rat skeleton in the drain pan. But there was something else. A long gouge in the metal floor. Not rust. Not wear. A drag mark. About 8 feet long. It started right behind the center bulkhead, where the drain trench was, and ended at the back doors. I measured it. Whatever made that mark was heavy. Way too heavy to have just rolled on its own. I started asking around. Quietly. A friend who used to run chicken loads out of the same region said that plant behind Logan hadn't run poultry or pork in over a year. It was shut down. Permits pulled. Whole site was sealed by the state. I checked again. The guy who sold me the trailer? His Facebook profile was gone. Poof. Deleted. That's when I decided to pull the maintenance logs from the unit's onboard system. Takes a bit of effort, but if you plug into the reefer CPU with the right cable, you can pull trip data. The log showed 3 temperature events in the last 90 days, all run manually, all below 0. Not below 10 like the notes said. One had held at -5 for 16 hours straight. No location stamps, just duration and temp. Whatever they were hauling, it wasn't FDA certified. Later that week, I got pulled at a random DOT inspection in Pikeville. The officer asked the usual logs, manifest, trailer VIN. I handed him everything. He checked the VIN, paused, and made a call. Then he walked back and said, "You just bought this trailer?" "Yeah," I said. "Off a guy named Lance. Private sale." He nodded slowly, then leaned in. "You should get it recertified before hauling perishables. This one's flagged, nothing criminal, just tagged for irregular refrigeration patterns. Might have been used for animal testing." I said nothing. He handed me back the paperwork and told me to move on. But later that night, I got curious. I crawled back into the trailer with a flashlight and started tapping along the floor. One corner panel rang hollow. It took me an hour to get the rivets off. Behind the insulation, buried in the floor cavity, I found a black plastic wristband. Medical. Size of a child's. No name. Just a barcode. I sat there on the cold steel floor, reefer humming beside me, the temperature at 12 degrees, and stared at that wristband until my hand went numb. I still used the trailer. I had it gutted, re-insulated, got the unit replaced. No one asks questions. It's just another aging Thermo King running produce out of Ohio. But I keep the wristband in the glove box. And I never, ever set that temp below 10. I've done some dumb runs in my time. Unpaid hours, sketchy deadheads, brokers who vanished after offloading. But nothing sticks in my memory like the night I delivered to the warehouse that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It was a Wednesday. I'd been dispatched on a backhaul out of Central Virginia. Generic goods, shrink-wrapped pallets. Shipping manifest said dry paper rolls, but I never saw inside the stacks. Wasn't my business. The rate was decent, and I needed to make up for 2 late pays the month before. The pickup was straightforward. The guy who loaded me was silent, didn't look at me, barely nodded, just signed the bill of lading and walked off. But the drop-off instructions were weird. No address, just coordinates. And a note from dispatch, drop at old textile lot. Deliver overnight. No need for signature. That was it. No contact, no company name, no gate instructions. I googled the coordinates and saw nothing but a pin near the Virginia-Kentucky line, deep Appalachia, just outside of Grundy. Satellite view showed a warehouse. All right, but it looked half collapsed. Overgrown asphalt. I called dispatch to clarify. They said, "Don't worry. Just deliver. They'll be expecting it." That didn't sit right. But I'd been running loads for these guys for 3 years, and they'd never stiffed me. I told myself it was just a weird contract thing. Maybe someone leasing an old site to avoid taxes. You learn not to poke too hard. I hit the road just before sunset. Drove through switchbacks and black hollers, barely wide enough for my cab. No shoulder. Fog moved like smoke between the trees. No GPS service once I got near the pin. Just me and the arrow on my NAV unit. When I pulled up, the place looked absolutely dead. A cracked lot full of grass. The chain-link fence was sagging. One of the light poles had fallen and impaled a rusted-out box truck like a javelin. The warehouse itself was massive, brick and corrugated steel, probably built in the 60s. Windows smashed out. Loading bays stripped bare. But bay #4. That one had a light on. A single yellow bulb, swaying slightly over the dock. And a blinking green signal light next to the roll-up door, just like you'd see on a live dock. Now I'm not an idiot. Every nerve in my body told me to turn around. But I'd already driven 6 hours with no other drop window. If I ghosted the load, it'd be my ass, and I couldn't afford another suspension. So I backed in, brake hiss echoing across the trees. Put the trailer flush to bay number 4. That light above flickered, then turned solid green, which meant dock is ready. But I never saw anyone. No forklifts, no yelling, no footsteps. And then the trailer shook. Not violent, just a subtle bump. A pallet jack hitting the frame. I checked my side mirror. Nothing. No movement. Then it shook again. A soft metal creak. The kind you only hear when heavy freight is being slid across steel decking. I turned off my engine. Rolled down the window. Listened. What I heard was wrong. The pallets weren't being lifted. They were being dragged. One by one. Slow, rhythmic scraping. No hydraulic hiss. No reverse beep from forklifts. Just that dragging sound. I stepped out, walked around the lot with my flashlight. It was dead quiet, except when I got near the dock. Then I heard them again. The pallets. Moving. I opened the trailer doors. Empty. I'm not joking. They were gone. Every last shrink-wrapped stack. The only thing left behind was a plastic glove. Blue nitrile. It was still warm. I spun in place, trying to find whoever was screwing with me, but there was no one. Just the sound of the wind through broken glass. And then the dock light turned red. That was my cue to go. I slammed the doors, climbed back in the cab, and got the hell out of there. No signature. No contact. Just silence in my mirrors. 2 hours later, I pull off to sleep at a pilot station. Open my app to upload proof of delivery, and what do I see? Manifest marked as received, signature, D. Murphy. Problem is, I'm D. Murphy, and I sure as hell didn't sign anything. I called dispatch, told them someone forged my name. They brushed it off. Happens all the time, especially at third-party docks. I said, the place looked abandoned. There was no staff. They said, you must have missed them. Don't worry about it. I couldn't shake the feeling, so I started digging. Asked around, pulled up old property records. That warehouse was condemned 7 years ago. Mold issues, structural instability. It was supposed to be sealed, but I kept hearing stories from other drivers. Weird stories. One guy said he delivered pallets of bottled water to a no-name warehouse that looked condemned. Another said he dropped medical supplies, never got a name, never saw anyone. Same general area, same type of night runs. I finally found someone who used to run with a private freight company that folded 5 years ago. He said the location sounded familiar. When I told him about the missing pallets and forged signature, he went quiet. Then he said, "You ever hear of blackout facilities?" I said no. He said, sometimes old warehouses get bought up quietly, not by companies, but by people. Used for unregulated storage, off-books disposal, or repackaging. Nobody checks in. Nobody checks out. Drivers just move the goods. No one asks where it ends up. I asked him who people meant. He didn't answer. Just said, if you ever go back, don't get out of the truck. A week later, my pay cleared. Full rate, no deductions. Manifest archived, hot digitally stamped. On paper, it never looked cleaner. But I know what I heard. I know what I didn't see. And sometimes when I drive late, just before dawn, windows cracked, I swear I still hear that dragging sound in the trailer. Like something being moved, shifted, disposed of. And now I always ask for a physical signature. Because I'll never forget how neat mine looked on that form, even though I never picked up a pen. I've driven through every kind of nowhere this country has to offer. The cracked desert roads of New Mexico, frozen pine corridors in the Dakotas, forgotten gas stations in the Florida Panhandle, all of it. But nothing has stuck with me the way that delivery run through the Appalachian backroads did last fall. The job came through a broker I'd used a few times before, reliable enough, though always a little too vague on details. Load was listed as general supplies, non-perishable. Pickup in Roanoke, drop off at a private campground near the West Virginia border. The address field? Blank. Just GPS coordinates. That should have been a red flag, but the rate was good, stupid good, and I needed the cash. I picked up the pallet load from a small warehouse, no labels, just shrink-wrapped crates with generic barcodes. The guy who signed the BL didn't make eye contact, and he didn't ask for my name. He just handed me the clipboard and said, "You'll get there around dusk. Don't be late. No number to call. No instructions beyond the coordinates. Just be there at dusk." I ran the route through my GPS, and it spat out a tangled mess of switchbacks and hollers. No highway access. Closest paved road stopped 5 miles from the pin. From there, it was dirt. I rolled out early, making good time until I hit the first unmarked road. Gravel turned to dust. Trees got denser, taller, hung heavy over the hood like they were trying to reach for the cab. My cell signal vanished, just a red X on the screen. By the time the sun started dipping, I was 40 minutes deep into a stretch of dirt road with no signage and barely enough clearance for a rig. The worst part? I didn't pass a single car the entire time. Then, like it had just appeared, the tree lane opened. The road leveled out into what looked like a clearing. A small valley, maybe a quarter-mile wide, surrounded by hills. There were houses, a few trailers, some old wooden cabins, clotheslines strung between porch posts, propane tanks, a rusted school bus with a blue tarp stretched over the roof. It wasn't a campground. It was a town. Small, rural, but clearly lived in. I slowed to a crawl, easing through what looked like the main drag, just dirt and grass worn flat from years of foot traffic. On my left, I saw a plastic playground set. Empty. On the right, a picnic table with 2 dented coolers on top. But no people, no dogs, no sounds. Just the hum of my engine and the crunch of gravel under tires. When I reached the pin, there was a wide open area that looked like an old foundation, maybe where a building used to be. I backed in, cut the engine, and waited. No one came out. I got out, walked around. Still nothing. After a few minutes, I opened the trailer and started unloading pallets by hand. It was light stuff, paper goods, canned food, sealed boxes of what looked like clothing. I stacked everything neatly, and then I heard it. A screen door creaking open. I turned, saw nothing. But when I looked back at the pallets, one was missing. Not moved. Not shifted. Gone. I walked around the rig. Checked behind trees. Nothing. Everything was still too still. No wind. No birds. Just heat rising off the hood and that feeling in your gut when you know something isn't right. I decided to leave. I snapped a photo of the offload, got in the cab, and fired up the engine. Backed out. Turned toward the same road I came in on. And it wasn't there. The opening was gone. The trees were tighter than before. There was no path, no break in the undergrowth, no tire tracks. I killed the lights and stepped out. Shined my flashlight. Nothing. Just thickets and brush. I walked 20 yards forward. Still nothing. It was like the road had never existed. I tried circling around the town's edge, maybe find another way out, but every path just fed back into the same clearing. Like driving in a circle with no scene. Around 10 p.m., I parked the rig near the middle of the clearing, locked the doors, and tried to sleep. That's when the headlights came on. Not mine. A vehicle parked directly across from me, maybe 50 feet away, with its brights pointed at my cab. I sat up, heart thudding, reached for the key to start the engine, but it was already in, already turned. My rig was off, but the keys hadn't moved. I blinked, and the headlights disappeared. Not faded. Vanished. I didn't sleep. I sat there until morning, engine idling, doors locked, waiting for someone, anyone, to appear. When the sun came up, the trees were back. The road was open again. I left. Didn't look back. Later that day, I pulled into a flying J 2 hours south and tried calling dispatch. The number was disconnected. The load ID wasn't in my logs. The rate hadn't posted. It was like the job never happened. I sent the delivery photos to a buddy of mine, an old hand who used to haul relief goods for FEMA. He stared at the picture for a while, then asked if I noticed anything odd. I said yeah, the place was creepy. He zoomed in and said, "No, man. Look at the pallets." And that's when I saw it. The barcode labels. They were branded with a 3-letter agency that doesn't do public delivery. They do emergency aid, disaster zones, quarantine sites, places that aren't supposed to exist, places they don't want found. He said, "You ever think you dropped that stuff off, but it wasn't the first drop?" I haven't taken a job without a signed address since. And every now and then, when I'm driving at night through the mountains, my GPS glitches for just a second. Shows a pin. Same coordinates. I don't stop anymore. I'm not the kind of guy who asks too many questions. Not in this line of work. Been driving rigs up and down the eastern seaboard for 15 years. Seen every flavor of weird you can think of: drug runners, busted brakes, sketchy roadside hookups, fake way stations, you name it. But nothing rattled me like the load I hauled last October. It started at a truck stop off I-79, about an hour south of Clarksburg, West Virginia. I was on my way back from a long deadhead run out of Richmond, looking to pick up a paying load before heading home. I'd pulled in around 2 a.m., just chasing caffeine, when this guy stepped out of the shadows near the diesel pumps. No badge, no logo, just dark clothes, work boots, and a flat brim hat pulled low. He asked if I was headed south, toward Logan or Pike County. Said he had a crate that needed moving cash deal, off the books, simple route. Now normally, I wouldn't even think about it. But my mortgage had just gone up, and my daughter's tuition was due. So I asked him what kind of cargo. Just equipment, he said. Secured in a custom crate. Don't open it. Don't inspect it. Deliver it to a lumber yard in Switzer before noon. That's it. 10,000. Cash. He showed me the money, and I told him to load it up. The crate was already in a panel trailer, 30 feet, no markings. He backed the rig up himself. Bolted the thing down with these thick industrial screws, all cross-braced and locked. The whole time, he didn't say a word. Just worked fast, methodical. I noticed he wore gloves, black nitrile, even in that heat. When he was done, he handed me a burner phone with one number programmed in. "Only call if you're not gonna make it," he said. "No stops. No photos. Keep it quiet." I nodded, shut the doors, and hit the road. The drive started smooth enough. Rolled through the winding two lanes near Chapmanville. No traffic. Light mist on the trees. Appalachia looks like something out of a postcard at night, but only if you don't stop to look too long. The first weird thing happened just past Dingus. I hit a deep pothole that jarred my whole cab. Nothing unusual, but the impact must have shifted something inside the trailer. I heard it then. A thud, followed by something like a long exhale. I eased off the gas, confused. There wasn't supposed to be anything loose in that trailer. The crate was strapped 6 ways to Sunday. I flicked the rear camera on. Nothing. Total black. No lights in the trailer. I pulled off near a narrow turnout, barely wide enough to fit my cab. Killed the engine. Opened my door and stood for a minute, listening. Silence. Just crickets and trees. I walked around the rig with my flashlight. No signs of damage. Locks were intact. But when I stood near the rear, I swore I heard something. A dull rhythmic tap. Not constant, like it was reacting to me. I told myself it was shifting straps. Maybe pressure from the impact. I even tapped on the sidewall. Nothing tapped back. I got back in the cab and kept moving. About 40 miles later, I reached this stretch of old mining road. It was technically still public, but barely. Cracked pavement, heavy canopy, no shoulder. And the fog rolled in fast, thick and yellow-gray, like someone poured dirty milk over the mountains. Visibility dropped to maybe 20 feet. I slowed down to a crawl. No cell signal. No GPS. Just my headlights cutting through that dense mist. That's when the smell hit. Like burning rubber and roadkill. Sour and metallic. I rolled up the windows, but it didn't help. It was coming from inside the cab. I checked my vents. Nothing. Even sniffed my own damn clothes. Still nothing. Then the sound came again. But this time, louder. Something was moving in the crate. I know the sound of loose cargo. This wasn't it. It was too deliberate. Like something big, shifting its weight. And then, I swear on my life, I heard it drag across the floor. I pulled over fast. Threw the hazards on. Grabbed my flashlight and stepped out, heart racing. That's when I noticed the bolts. One of the 4 exterior bolts on the trailer's back door had been unscrewed. Not broken. Not rattled loose. Cleanly turned. That was it. I'd had enough. I unlatched the doors and swung them open. The crate sat there, just as before. 7 feet long, 4 feet tall. Bolted into a custom base plate. Thick steel. But something had changed. There were scratch marks on the inside panel of the trailer wall. Fresh. Deep. 5 parallel gouges like fingernails or claws. And the crate itself? It was breathing. Not literally, but expanding and contracting like something inside was pushing against it in pulses. I backed away and slammed the doors shut. I didn't want to know. I didn't care anymore what was in there. I just wanted it off my rig. I tried the burner phone. Dead. No signal. I considered dumping the trailer, but I couldn't. It was bolted to my 5th wheel. And by then, I was already halfway there. So I kept driving. I made it to the drop point, an abandoned lumber yard surrounded by chain link and old trailers. No signs. No people. Just a red pickup parked near one of the sheds. Same man from before. He waved once, walked up, and handed me a satchel. Full payment. Didn't say a word. Then he pulled out an industrial cordless drill and unscrewed the entire trailer from my rig in under 5 minutes. When he was done, he looked at me and said, "You didn't open it, right?" I shook my head. He stared for a moment, then gave this half smile. "You're lucky." And then he towed the trailer into one of the sheds and locked the doors behind him. I left. Didn't ask. Didn't call. Just drove straight home. That was 8 months ago. Since then, I've seen the same red truck 3 more times. Parked off exits, half hidden near rest stops. Never moving. Never approaching. Just sitting there. Last week, I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a photo. My daughter. At school. Playing in the yard. And on the back, in shaky handwriting, "Don't ask about the crate."